Welcome back to the Colorado Rockies, ladies and gentlemen. What an offseason. This has been the busiest offseason and preseason I have ever done with the Colorado Rockies. We made so many moves and we are in so much debt. We are in a mountain pile of debt, and I'll explain why we're doing that and what our expectations are going to be moving forwards and how we're going to combat that. But basically, we have the second highest payroll now in Major League Baseball. We're a good distance away from the Dodgers, about $40 million, but it is still way more than we expected. We did a huge amount of dealing to make that possible, and we have not dropped any of our budgets. Our scouting, our player development are all still super high. So that's kind of why I'm not freaking out at the moment. But regardless, our spring training was amazing. We have only had two injuries that we'll talk about when we get into that really fast here. And they're minor, nothing major, no pitching staff injuries, nothing wrong about there. Now, let's first start with what we ended up doing to kind of open up some space on the team. We talked about the trade to the Yankees last episode, how we got $35 million from them, as well as a couple of prospects for basically Willie Espin, who's going to be starting for the Yankees in left field, as well as a couple of other arms and a second baseman. Still a good trade. Still like it. The players we got back from them, Jesus Gonzalez, had a really good offseason development. Looks pretty solid. Chris Brewer is actually, I think, he's close to being ranked on the top 100 prospects list. He's 194th. He's just outside the behind the top 200, or sorry, ahead of the top 200 position. So it's still good. But we saw that opportunity to be able to increase our budget for the season, just for this one particular season, to make a bigger push now. And I'll explain why we did that. We went ahead and did another deal. We saw the Atlanta Braves were willing to give us $50 million in cash for Jackson Cox, who has been basically a borderline quad A starter slash reliever. He wasn't that good. We also gave them Josiah Hartshorn, who was a backup outfielder. He's got some good power, but I just don't like the avoid Ks, and I don't think his defense is quite good enough. So he's kind of a DH in our books, and he's just not going to be that great. He had his first full season in AAA last year after being in only rookie ball and A ball. So he's definitely good. Don't get me wrong. We drafted him, I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, I'm sorry, we didn't. He was from the Baltimore Orioles. He was the trade we did for Felix Bautista. We gave them Hunter Goodman for basically Josiah Hartshorn and Felix Bautista. So that trade has been absolutely phenomenal. I still don't know why they gave us that as a deal, basically. But anywho, we did that trade. So that meant we had basically about $85 million in additional cash flow for just this one season. This isn't like a long-term thing. This doesn't go to our budgets, for future seasons. It's just for this one season alone. But as you guys will find out in a second, that opened up the doors for a whole bunch of things. Now, we did not have anybody in the top 10 prospects list, and I can tell you right now, we still do not have anybody in the top 10 prospects list. Let me go ahead and go all the way up to where it is now. So, as you can see, still nobody in the top 10 prospects list. And then you can also see we did not get Alex Rodriguez in the international amateur free agency period, unfortunately. Our minor leagues are now ranked, where are we now, 20th? Yes, 20th. Novar and Castilla are going to be our top two prospects heading into the upcoming season. So we didn't quite get a whole lot of the development for our minor league systems. I still like having these two players at least, and we've got some people who are moving up through the system and getting better and better, but unfortunately we didn't have the riveting off season for minor league prospect development that I was kind of hoping to push for. Instead, we had something very, very different. We did a lot of actual major league offers. So let me get up to that, and then we'll talk about those in a second here. We were able to claim Kyle Johnson from the Braves. He's actually in AAA. He would be a potential number 5 starting pitcher. We're hoping to develop him, finish up his development with a little bit more control here. He's also a bit of a two-way player, can play the outfield too, but we are expecting him to be in AAA at the beginning of the regular season and trying to vie for that potential call-up situation. We did extend Robert Calaz in the minor league system, but then he got picked by the Brewers in the Rule 5 pickup. He's the only one of the, I believe, 2 or 3 people who were picked up in the Rule 5 draft that is still on the squad for that team right now. At the end of the day, it's not a huge loss for us. He would have been a semi replacement for Brenton Doyle potentially if he continued to develop more. But being 25 years of age and pretty much fully done developing and not really in any position to be able to get much further in development, and also having not played a full season in AAA, we were okay with the fact that the Milwaukee Brewers have kept him so far up until opening day. We are expecting them to keep him probably for about a month, and then I'm expecting him to be released and sent back to us. So, still expecting to be able to have Robert Kalaz back on our team. It's just going to be a matter of time and figuring out what it looks like when he comes back. We were doing a whole bunch of scouting for our international scouting practices. We did see some problems with Alex Rodriguez. Actually, at one point, he actually had dropped down a good, decent amount, and we actually had questions about that. But he bounced back in later scouting reports, and he is now officially the number 10 overall prospect rank at this point. So he's pretty good, but he doesn't exactly thrill me like I was hoping he was going to. This is basically where he started with the scouting reports that we had. So we were hoping that he would go up from this point, and then I would have poured a full amount into acquiring him instead of what ended up happening, which was basically he still got a full amount. It was just from the Cleveland Guardians, and it was still about $5.7 million. But he's not as good of a pitcher as I was hoping he was going to be. We did, of course, sign all of our minor league people to extensions, including Kalaz. We did get the contract with Kunkel, and this kind of snowballed and started our whole entire thing for the season. So this is Larry Kunkel's new contract. It is 15 years, $515.5 million. He has an opt-out after his 30-year or 30 aged year contract. That's 2038. That's 7 years from now? No, 8 years from now. He gets a chance to be able to opt out. His contract will go from 7.5 million gradually up to 35 million. And then if he opts out, he will forfeit about 300 and what is that? $340 million. It's $50 million once he gets to age 31. That's the 2039 season. That goes all the way through his age 34 season at 2042. And then he has 3 additional seasons, the last one being a player optional season at about $45 million. So we felt like this was a great approach where it's a team friendly contract, but it still gets him paid. And even though it's less than what he was probably hoping for in terms of the average year amount, and especially since most of the contract is technically in the last 7 years of this contract, we thought it was a really good choice. And we have a lot of bonuses for him. He's guaranteed a starting pitching role. He's not given a no trade clause. He's not given a whole bunch of options beside that one option at age 30 after his age 30 season in 2038. So we at least have Kunkel for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years now to be able to keep him on the team under a very, very friendly contract. And then I'm expecting that he probably will not opt out once he gets to age 31. I don't think that the league is going to be that far along that $50 million is going to be unheard of or too low. Basically, I think that'll be absolutely acceptable for him to stay on for those last 7 seasons. And if push comes to shove and he opts out, then we can always attempt to negotiate a new contract, probably for the last 10 years of his life, or 10 years of his time in the big leagues potentially. But if he's also been having some struggles by that point, if he's barely a starter by that point, maybe we look into the idea of completely just not having him on the squad after the 8 years. So it gives us basically 8 good prime years of his life to move forward with. He's had very good development this offseason. He's still continuing to do really well. Still by far the best pitcher in baseball. And if that changeup will ever develop, I will be very, very happy. We've been trying everything we can to throw at that to make that actually happen. But at this point, I'm just happy that he's still on the team, still looking pretty good. Hasn't really dropped down in any way, shape, or form. Hasn't had any injury problems. I think his only injury has been, a strained hamstring, a wrist soreness, and a sore back. And that was in 29 and a couple in 30. And it was just the longest duration was 4 weeks. So, No real issues with Larry Kunkel. Fans were absolutely, sorry, they're slightly happy about that. I don't know why they were only slightly happy about that. The kid is probably going to be our face of the franchise for years to come at this point. So we got him. That got us up to the Gold Glove announcement. Of course, it was Drew Romo, Charlie Condon, Bobby Witt Jr., and Brenton Doyle. Brenton Doyle wins Gold Glove number 7 of his career, and I actually, when I did the manual voting, I didn't vote for him. Not because I knew I was getting rid of him or anything like that. There's just better center fielders out there at this point. There's one or two who are, a little bit better than Brenton Doyle. So I'm surprised he actually even got the award in the first place. So he wins Gold Glove in center field alongside, of course, Bobby Witt Jr. at third base, Condon at first, and Romo behind the plate. Will Vest got reliever of the year, which surprised me. He had a good season, don't get me wrong, but he was definitely not Yon Duran, who had a phenomenal season for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's now on a $26 million contract with the Diamondbacks, and that is a 3-year deal that goes up to $28.4 million for the next 2 seasons. And then, of course, the Cardinals ended up trading Trey Magoo, who was their setup person ahead of Duran, to the Dodgers, and so the Dodgers now have one of the better relief pitchers in the league, although I don't think he'll do quite so good as he did last season with his 100 innings pitched with the Cardinals last year. So he was reliable, but he's also really, really, really overused. Silver Sluggers, we did, of course, have a couple. We had Ezekiel Tovar and Riley Green for our Silver Sluggers. I actually see 2 people on this list that we have acquired, and we'll get to that very, very soon. Lavello, of course, got Manager of the Year. We did win the World Series, and we won 108 games. And, of course, Larry Kunkel won Pitcher of the Year. So this is the Cy Young. He was a unanimous Cy Young winner. He had 30 votes, got 210 points. He was over Junseo Nam, as well as Jamie Roseborough, of course. Lyndon Fundez is still doing very well, as well as Skeens and Green and Gilbert and Yamamoto. Trey McGow, the reliever from the Cardinals, actually getting some votes. But then Nick Graneman also got a couple of votes for the San Francisco Giants at this point. The Giants, by the way, have got a very good rotation of Nick Graneman, Logan Gilbert, a 4-star pitcher, and Cody Popke finally getting his first full season, hopefully this season, in the rotation. He's a potential 4-star starting pitcher. So I have high expectations for the Giants moving into this season in regards to those top 3 starting pitchers. A lot of people would kill for that kind of a starting rotation. And of course, the support that someone like a Dakota Jordan can bring with the homers is also quite nice. But their offense is definitely needing some help. And we're not helping in the National League, unfortunately. We were able to get a couple more people discovered over the course of the offseason before we got into the free agency market. Free agency happened. There was nobody really on this. Well, sorry, there were 2 people. My apologies. There were 2 people on this list that we were very, very, very interested. 2 relief pitchers, and we ended up getting both of them. So, with that being said, let's run into our free agency situation. So, we went ahead and offered the New York Yankees one more deal because we realized if we're going to do this, and we're going to have the option because we realized, and I'll explain why in a second here. We saw that the free agency system had 4 individuals that we wanted. 2 of those were the relievers we just talked about. That was Jonathan Lovato and Jorge Rodriguez, a 4-star and a 4.5-star relief pitcher. And we were like, okay, it's going to be about $15-20 million for each of them for starting points. So right there, you've got about $30-40 million. And then we noticed that the free agency had both Jackson Merrill and Jackson Holiday on the system. We have acquired both of them. And we'll talk about that in more depth here in a second. But basically, we were like, well, okay, so let's think about this. We signed Jackson Merrill to replace either Doyle or Green, because Green leaves at the end of the season. Most likely than not, he's gone, okay? Let's face the music. Riley Green is going to be gone at the end of the year. He's going to opt out. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to opt out at the end of the season. What if we acquire Holiday, move Amador to third base in the following season? Stroman goes to the outfield. We could have Rada, Doyle, and Stroman, or we could acquire Jackson Merrill to play center field and move on from Doyle, which is what we ended up doing. We first of all acquired Jackson Merrill very, very quickly. We offered him like pretty much immediately in 8 days. We offered him a pretty decent, friendly contract for us. It's a $30 million contract of a couple of seasons of 32 at the end. So he's got 4 years of 30, 4 years of 32.8. This was less than what he was asking for. It's a $250 million 8 year contract. This will have him signed until he's 35 years of age. He's super speedy, good in center field. He's not going to be a gold glover like Doyle, but he's going to play a decent center field. He'll do just fine. But his bat is where he's going to be better. He's not going to strike out. He's going to have some pop. He's got some power. He's got some gap power. He'll steal some bases with our system. He's a fan favorite. This is a good signing for us. And he signed immediately with us. And that was when I realized, okay, we need to make some moves. When we offered the deal to Merrill and to Holiday, we also offered deals to the other two relief pitchers as well. That, of course, was Lovato and where's the other person at this point? We had Lovato's contract offering and we had Rodriguez's contract offering. Okay. And we realized we were not going to be able to be competitive for all four of them if the prices went up, which they did. Okay. So we made one more deal. We traded again with the New York Yankees. We gave them Wilder Dallas because we thought, okay, if we acquire Jackson Holiday, we don't need an infielder. We don't need an infielder slash outfielder like Dallas here at this point. So it was a good option for us to get rid of him. We also gave the Yankees Dallas Bollock, which is a starting pitching option we had from AAA last season. He's good, but we don't really need him too much at the moment, so we're okay to get rid of him. We ended up getting $50 million from the Yankees to basically allow us to make these signings. So right after making that deal with the Yankees, we did acquire Jackson Merrill. We lost a third-round pick, but the fan base is absolutely just stark raving mad for us at this point. Merrill signs the $250 million contract for 8 years, which was huge. We had some good development of some of our players, of course, in the programs while we're doing this. Again, this is all happening at the same time. It was a busy offseason, okay? It was a super busy offseason. Now, we lost Imanaga. He ends up going to the Cleveland Guardians. He's still injured, though. The Athletics got the number 1 overall pick. The Orioles dropped down to 5. Good situation there for the Athletics. They still need all the help they can get. And that's when we decided to go ahead and move on from Doyle because we had our new center fielder. We didn't really need anything else because we had Greene, we have Rada, we have Stroman, we have Doyle, and we now have Merrill, which is too many outfielders to go along with a DH. So we shipped away Brenton Doyle and Justin Martinez because we were interested in acquiring those two new relief pitchers who were on the free agency. And Justin Martinez while he is cheap at $8.2 million, he is also not exactly doing very well in the development department. He has been falling short a little bit, and he had a little bit of a rough season. I know he'll be just fine, but the Padres were initially offering us Doyle for Valdez, a straight up Framber Valdez for Brenton Doyle trade, which we were like, okay, that's interesting enough as it is. He's expensive, $34.5 million, but it's a 1-year contract for Valdez, and we had just been given basically $135 million to work with for the current season. We can get rentals like Framber Valdez, no problem. So we did a little bit of trickery. We had the Padres retain 45% of Valdez's contract, which means we're basically paying him roughly about $18 to $19 million. We included 5 of their pitching prospects: Armando Landeros, Bobby Bell, Julio Duran, who is now an outfielder, sorry, not a pitching prospect there, Jimmy Eaton, and Stephen Stinson, who's a closing reliever at this point. We have really done a good job on this trade. I think this is actually going to be one of the better trades I've ever made in OOTP. Doyle will still be okay. He's a 2.5-star Gold Glove center fielder with really good speed, but really hasn't been able to develop a whole bunch of his hitting potential ever since we joined as the GM of the Colorado Rockies. Again, he's still very good, but the best I can ever see him doing is what he did last season, which was basically a 4 WAR season, just above average for hitting and still a Gold Glove caliber defense and great speed. He will be fine in San Diego. He will have a great time over there. But his contract is not exactly super friendly at $9.2 million, and we have better options. We can do better for offense. And then, of course, then again, Justin Martinez. So this basically was a way for us to basically go a net even on contracts, as well as losing some future contract numbers, because Doyle has 2 more seasons and Martinez has 1 more season of contract left, and we save some future money to help us with these signings for all these free agency attempts that we were all at the same time trying to go through, and there was so many negotiations. I can't explain how many times we had to renegotiate with people. I know that Holiday, and I think it was the final reliever, Jorge Rodriguez. They went like 4 or 5 rounds of us having to renegotiate, reoffer, and just hope and pray we could actually get them eventually without them going too high on the cost. We continue to discover more prospects. We lost Calaz and Toralva on the Rule 5 draft. Toralva's already back on our team. He's back in AAA. And again, as you mentioned, I'm expecting Calaz to probably be back in probably about a month. We noticed that Jason Burquest went to the St. Louis Cardinals after being traded to the Dodgers from the Yankees. So he is a big trade bait person, and I don't know why. But the Dodgers traded for him. He's now on their team. We acquired Jonathan Lovato immediately after that, and he was not cheap. He's $13.2 million, but he's a upgraded version of Justin Martinez. Basically, he's 33 years of age, so he's a little bit older, and he's not as good on the personality. He won't be as good with our team chemistry, but we thought that he'd be a better option for us. He will be joining our bullpen out of Cuba, and it was a good signing for us at this point. It was a good thing that we were able to get him. We had the Hall of Fame voting come through. Cano and Kershaw are the 2 people who are joining the Hall of Fame. We got into the free agency, international amateur free agency system. That was chaotic. That was absolutely chaotic. We had so many negotiations of so many different players that did not pan out. It was bad. We had a really rough international free agency system. There was, I believe, about 6 or 7 people we offered contracts to. And immediately after we offered contracts to them, they were max contracted by a different team and just not stolen from us, but someone else got them instead of us. So it was a rough one. It was a very rough time for the international amateur free agency, unfortunately. But immediately following that, we were able to acquire Jackson Holiday instead. And that was a huge signing. Jackson Holiday joins the squad. He's similar to Jackson Merrill in that he's not entirely a pure power hitter. He can hit home runs, he can hit doubles, he has a really good eye, he's not going to strike out too often, he's got really good speed. I think we're hoping that we can bring Jackson back to his Baltimore seasons where he had a 9 WAR season with them before he got injured and became a little bit prone to the injury problems. But we believe that he can play second base for us this season, and that means that originally Amador was going to be our bench player. I know that sounds crazy, but we literally had no place to put him with everything that's happened. Now, during spring training, we did get injuries to Tovar. He's about a week away from coming back from his injury, and Nelson Rada got injured as well. So he's got 4 weeks until Nelson Rada is back. That has resulted in our graphic chart for the season looking like this. We're going to have Riley Green back out in left field while Rada is getting rehabbed. Jackson Merrill will be in center, and Jaden Stroman is positioned to play right field for the season. De La Cruz will be our DH. Witt Jr. will be playing third base. Amador goes over to play shortstop for the season at the beginning, basically until Tovar is back. Holiday will go play second base, and Condon will play first base with Drew Romo behind the plate. And Ben McCarthy is going to be our backup catcher this season. He has had a good time in spring training, and he looked very nice. He is well developed, and he should be just fine in our backup position. Now, when Tovar comes back, that means that Amador will be moving to the DH position to fight alongside Alessandro De La Cruz as our DH. So there will be a situation in which Amador is also still kind of really not necessary to keep. But here is our logic. Once Riley Green and Witt Jr. opt out at the end of the regular season, which they are expected to do, Jackson Holiday will play second base, and Amador will move to third base for the rest of his career, basically. De La Cruz will move to left field, which will make room for our DH position for anybody that we want to bring up and make a DH. Alternatively, if Matthews or Alvarez or any of our AAA players who are outfielders who are looking pretty good have a very good development, they could alternatively become our new left fielder next season. At the moment, we are still developing quite a few of our offensive caliber players at the moment, trying to make them good. And with the flexibility that Merrill and Holiday have, we have some decent flexibility with both of them. We could alternatively make some moves and acquire a better, maybe defensive center fielder or a better defensive second baseman and move one of them to DH or to third base or whatever we want to do. We have flexibility. We've got people locked down for a long period of time. Basically, the core will move from Bobby Witt Jr. and Riley Green to a combination of Holiday, Tovar, and Tovar will move on too, unfortunately. We are not expecting to retain Tovar at this point, so we will be moving forward with the idea of having three compensation draft picks. Next, it would be 2 seasons from now, technically. Well, no, it would be technically next season. Next season would be our compensation approach, and that would be with us losing Tovar, Witt Jr., and Riley Green. I don't want to, but it's probably going to be what happens at this point. We'll end up having to figure out who our new shortstop is. It might be Jaden Stroman, actually. He's a very good shortstop. He's a 75 rated shortstop. That's more than acceptable for a shortstop at this point. Um, that would give us an outfield position for someone, say, like De La Cruz or Matthews. Or even if we had a better defensive center fielder acquired, Merrill could probably go move over to right field or left field. But we would expect, we would basically expect Amador, Holiday, Condon, and Merrill, with maybe probably also Drew Romo, to be our core five players, alongside, of course, Stroman and Rada. So you have 7 players at that point who are basically kind of guaranteed to remain on the team. And now, while they're not exactly the elite players that I'm hoping for, none of them are really, maybe outside of Condon being a slugger, none of them are really going to, make your team a dynamic team. But combining all of them together, that is great because, when you start combining people like Romo's defense and Stroman's versatility. When you just start to combine them together, they make a really solid offense that really isn't going to struggle too poorly, even in situations where they're not elite players like a Riley Green or like a Bobby Witt Jr. Because again, if we go back to our meet the team situation, we now officially have the number 1 overall second baseman, the number 1 overall third baseman, the number 1 overall left fielder, the number 1 overall center fielder. We're going to lose, and Tovar's 4th at shortstop. We're going to lose 2 number 1s and number 4 at their position. There is nobody better that we could get than these people that we're going to lose, okay? And I know that sounds so demoralizing that I think they're already gone, but I just don't see it happening. Their contracts are not player-focused contracts. They are team-focused contracts. And I should never have given them the opt-out option. I should have just said, no, we're not going to give you that. You stay with us until we're done with you. But at the same time, considering the fact that Green is also kind of fragile, I'm also not that upset. I'm not that upset about the idea that, they might move on and it wouldn't mean the end of the world for us. That's basically the answer I'm coming to. After getting through with Holiday, we were able to also acquire Jorge Rodriguez, and this was kind of the final straw. And this one was an expensive one, and probably one that I'm not going to be as happy about. Jorge Rodriguez was fought over with us by the New York Yankees, and they pushed his contract up to almost $30 million for a closer. But he's 27 and he throws 97 and 99. He's still got a little bit of development left. He's got a curveball fastball combination. He looked absolutely amazing in spring training. And this just gives us now officially, really 4 amazing bullpen arms in Rodriguez, Will Vest, Lovato, and Enriquez. And we have actually moved Will Vest out of the closing role. He's not doing as well. He had a rougher season last year. He still did great, but he's struggling a little bit, and this gives him just a breather. Jorge Rodriguez will come in and do a great job. He's, just about as good in almost every single category as Vest, and not if not better in a lot of the areas. And then Lovato is basically a step down version of Jorge Rodriguez. So this gives us now, just a dominant bullpen that will be very, very talented. And with, Kunkel and Valdez as the number one, number two pitchers, we are going to be looking at Mercurius, Dominguez, and Fiend as our 3, 4, and 5 starters for the upcoming regular season, which it's a miracle that Fiend is even here, basically. Dominguez has been okay. He's actually developed quite nicely. He's 2.5 stars for the big leagues. His stamina's having a problem and his control's having a problem, but I am happy to have him here. He had a full season in AAA last year. He was doing okay before an injury took him down for the remainder of the season. He was, I believe, doing fine in spring training. Yeah, he had just started to kind of turn the corner, so we're going to give him a chance. We're going to give him a chance to be able to do it. Mercurius is going to get his first full season starting. He had been a starter down in AAA. He was a reliever last year for us. He did not do that great, but he's got some really good pitches, and the stamina's okay. He's 2.5 stars. He's basically a little bit of a different version of Dominguez. And for 24 years of age, he's really good. Dominguez being 23, Fiend being 25, and then, of course, Kunkel, 23 years of age. And again, our offense should really just carry us. It should be an all offensive juggernaut squad moving forwards. And I'm very excited about the team at this point in terms of how we've managed to just craft this really good, solid club. Now, you might be thinking that's a lot of money we spent on a lot of these people. Like we have a lot of money. Well, here's one of the reasons why we did it, because the owner then was like, "Oh, you're spending a lot of money. Let me increase your budget to $250 million." Now, that still was not really enough, in all honesty, but it was enough for us to be able to say, "Okay, I think we can at least make this work and not actually have to lose a whole bunch of our budgets for development and other stuff like that." We at one time had also inquired with Corbin Carroll about joining the squad. We just thought about the idea of, hey, maybe we get another person who could be an outfield arm. Maybe we move on from Rada. Maybe we move on from um, I don't know, somebody else at that point. The idea of maybe moving Corbin Carroll to right field or left field. We kept our options open this offseason, which is something different than I usually do. Usually I'm very closed in free agency unless it's like an elite prospect that's on the free agency system, which technically Jackson Merrill and Jackson Holiday are. They are basically what you're looking for, which is 27-year-old prospects who are fully developed or mostly developed and will make your team just that much better and that much, stronger of a unit. For the prospects, we ended up getting Benito Alvarez. We also ended up getting Danny Rodriguez as well as another person that we were able to acquire down the road. I think it actually happened later in the whole entire situation. Again, we tried to make so many deals to these international amateur free agents, and none of them bit. We were able to get Charlie Atchison. Yeah, Atchison, I believe is how it's pronounced. And then of course we were able to get Miguel Cardero. We got a couple of minor league free agencies who were signed. And we got Luis Rodriguez signed at this point. He was another person who was in their minor leagues free agency at this point. And some of them actually have stayed on the team for the major league promotion to the big leagues. So congratulations to all of them. Chris Gonzalez, we had some players get bumped up into our minor league system. We had some good development time for certain players like Kunkel, and Hernandez had a really good one right before the beginning of the regular season. Tony Hernandez might turn into something quite nice if he continues to develop a little bit of these options. He will be in AAA for the season. He was in A ball all of last season and did very, very well. So some people are having really, really good developments over the course of the last couple of days. Ronaldo Gonzalez had some good developments. He could still be something interesting if he can get these pitches up to speed, but still going to be a little bit of work to get him around, unfortunately. But then otherwise, people like Scott Cowles are still developing quite nicely, and he's got some good control and some decent stuff at this point. So we have options, and a lot of these people were just hoping and kind of praying that because we haven't really had a very good draft spot in the first year player draft, we haven't had that, Kunkel number 2 overall pickup type situation. we have to hope for the diamonds in the rough, and we've been doing a decent enough job of being able to find those at this point. We found Rada. I think no, we traded for Rada technically. And I think Stroman was not one of our own drafted players. Actually, he was 2025 second round pick. Man, okay. So we've had some good ones. We've had some good pickups, and it just depends on whether or not we're able to continue doing that moving forwards. But a lot of our stuff, a lot of our players really do come from trades or, basically finding somebody in the international amateur free agency or something like that. Manny Vaca did have a good situation in his program development for the season. He's still interesting for a prospect at third base. We'll keep an eye on him. Maybe we'll teach him first base because he is 6'4", and that would be an interesting 6'4" first base option for us. We'll see about that. Otherwise, season expectations from the owner, of course, we're supposed to win it all this year, which I would expect that with the kind of offense that we've got. Our prospect system is now officially ranked still ranked 20th. As I mentioned earlier in the video, opening day has come for us once again, and our preseason predictions, I'll leave you guys with this right about here. We are expected to win 109 games, one better than last year. Merrill, Condon, Holiday, and Witt Jr. are supposed to be the best hitters in the major leagues. I would assume Tovar is going to be added to that list. If he was healthy, he would be on this prediction. He's not because of his injuriness right about now. Kunkel is supposed to be one of the best pitchers in baseball at this point, and I can totally agree to that. I am definitely looking to see how the Tigers do this season as well. We are still watching out for Camacho. He's dropped down to only 4.5 stars, so the league quality is rising up ahead of him, basically. But he has won 2 Cy Youngs, and that will always come back to haunt me, unfortunately. So Camacho, we should have kept you. We could have had you instead of Framber Valdez, basically. But otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for this episode. Basically, our team looks amazing. We have so many good quality people in the team at this point. It is really looking really, really good. And I guess the last thing I'll talk about really fast before we actually let you guys go, the money situation. Now, we have had a 30% rise in average attendance projected attendance per game to 48,000 people. That means we're almost going to be selling out every single game of the season at this point, and that is phenomenal. Our our fan base is growing, our market size is growing, our interest is growing. We're building a dynasty. We have no money left. We have got no money left. Our owner is actually pitching in, expected to pitch in to be able to just make ends meet. We are actually having luxury tax applied to us because our player expenses are $298 million for this season. And that's mostly because of Holiday, Greene, Merrill, and Rodriguez. Then you've got a bunch of our 20 million and below people. Of course, we have people like Condon and Kunkel who are going to start to rise up in money pretty quickly here. And there's just going to be some situations where certain players start to demand a whole lot of money, like Stroman probably needs to get paid here pretty soon. It's just going to depend upon how we want to handle some of the arbitration offers and stuff like that. But this is where it gets interesting. With the expectation that Riley Greene and Bobby Witt Jr. are not going to be with us next season, that gives us about $47.5 million expected to come off the books next year. So that means that next year, our player salaries, our player payroll should be closer to about $220 million. And I'm expecting also that Edgardo Enriquez and Carlos Rodriguez are probably also going to be moved on from. They're not going to be offered arbitration. So that might put us down at about a $210 million payroll budget, which would actually be feasible if we're given a raise for next year. If our budget is given a raise to, like, say 260, 270 million, we could actually make this work and not go into massive debt. Is basically all I can say. We should be able to make this work, and we should be okay. And with the assumption, it's a big assumption, but with the assumption that we are going to win the World Series once again this year, because there is nobody injuries could stop this offense, but there is no team in the National League that can stop this offense, okay? We also have potentially the best pitching staff in in the National League right about now as well. Okay. We are on par with basically everybody else in the National League West for pitching staffs. And we play in Colorado, which means that it should be 10 times worse there, basically. We are very good. And as long as we don't let anybody knock us down in the National League West, nobody else in the entire National League is going to compete against us. The one team that I am a little bit concerned about is the Seattle Mariners once again. They've got a nice young squad that is starting to develop, and they have Daniel Mayhew. This kid could be something special as well. He's going to get his first full season as the ace of the Seattle Mariners. This is ahead of Chris Sale and George Kirby, Stanley Alcantara, and Bobby Cordova. They've got a decent pitching staff, a decent bullpen, and they've got Kyle Tucker and Bill Lice, or is it Lace? Lace, I believe, as some really good clutch hitters. And again, really young. I mean, you're talking about a team that have their best players, which is basically Lace, I believe. When you talk about their best players, you're talking about Daniel Mayhew, 22 years of age, and Lace, 23 years of age, Cole Young, 27, Colt Emerson, 25, Harry Ford, 28, Celestin, 25. Great shortstop there for the Seattle Mariners. They've got a good young squad. This should be a hard team to just beat without, having them just roll over. They're going to be a competition for the league for years and years to come. So I have high expectations for them. I also have high expectations for the Detroit Tigers. And then, of course, you can't count out the Boston Red Sox and Russ McLaughlin. We have some really good pitcher rivalries coming up through the system at this point. You've got some really good players who are just solid pitchers who just have so much potential to be really good. And I don't know why the D-backs have Joan Duran as a starting pitcher. I might have to go in and look at that personally. But you got Graneman, you've got Kunkel, you've got Camacho, you've got Fondez, you've got Nam, you've got, of course, Tony Avila with the Tampa Bay Rays. He's 22 and now finally coming up. He's going to have his third full season here in the big leagues. He could become a danger for a lot of organizations out there. Of course, you've got Russ McLaughlin. You've got Roseboro for the Cubbies. He's now back up to 4.5 stars on his ability. He's a really good ace pitcher as well. And then, of course, Wilson Garcia for the Angels. The Angels have got a really good double duo. They've got Jason Brown, 4.5 stars. He's been a staple point for their team for 3 seasons now. And they finally have Wilson Garcia ready to go. He's going to get his first full season in the big leagues. He had a little taste of it last year. He's a 4.5 star prospect starting pitcher as well. And then, of course, they've got our own Brody Brecht. He's been on the team now for 4 straight seasons. He's been decent. He's a great middle of the road rotation arm. Even though he only has 31 stamina, he's still very good. And they've got Justin Lower, another of our prospects, who again also has really bad stamina, but still is being able to throw in a good amount of innings pitched in a very good WAR situation. And they picked up Cade Smith in the offseason, and they have him as their closer now. He was doing very well for the Yankees last year, and they've got Clase as their setup. They've got Ginkel as their number one, like middle reliever with Bryce Martinez. They've got a good squad. If their offense can do a better job, I think they'll have a good chance. But their pitching staff is very good. So Angels, another team that I'm looking to see if they make moves. Again, mostly because their pitching staff could really change the difference. It could be the difference in the American League West. Otherwise, Seattle Mariners, 601 runs allowed. That's going to be ridiculous if they can actually hit that. Tigers, 651. So some very good pitching staffs in the American League. They could shut us down if they wanted to, but I'm very happy that we're in the National League, and the only team that really could shut us down is basically the Dodgers, maybe the Giants to an extent. They've got a really good combination in Graneman, Gilbert, and Popke, but they've got no offense. It'll be a lot of close ball games, but our offense should easily carry us in most of those situations. The Brewers are not too bad because they still have Nam. They still have Tobias Myers. They have Josh Noth, but they've had some problems with Myers. He's dropped out. He's no longer the Cy Young winner that he was in 2028. He's back to his normal 2 to 3 WAR caliber type seasons, unfortunately. So not so good for him. And Nam's gonna start to age here. He's now 31. He's having good seasons still, but I don't think he's ever gonna be able to hit that first season quality where he was 19 and 5 with a 2.69 ERA. He basically had everything but strikeouts. He would have been a triple crown winner if he'd gotten that strikeout number down. But I'm afraid that he's going to be passed by a lot of starting pitchers, and the Cubbies would have some good options as well. They've got Roseboro, of course. They've had Justin Steele for a while. He's still a very solid pitcher at this point as well. There's some really good talent now across the league, and it's been interesting to watch them all get developed. But outside of, I mean, the Dodgers still have a good rotation, but it's mostly going to be whether or not is ever able to get this 4.5 star rating. If he hits that and he actually gets that good, he will make the Dodgers very, very talented. But otherwise, this rotation is aging and aging fast, and it's just going to be a matter of time before they cannot keep up with everything else. And even getting the Rookie of the Year, yes, you heard me right. Andre Bautista beat out Larry Kunkel for Rookie of the Year. I will never forgive you, OOTP, for this. But even though they have that, I think their offense is still okay, but it's not challenging like it used to be. Vlad Guerrero Jr. will always be a problem, but he's going to start aging here pretty soon, too. He's 32. He doesn't really have much defense left. So he's going to have to be a DH pretty soon, but he can still hit for average. And he's a really good hitter, but he's going to start turning into more and more of kind of a singles and doubles hitter. Kind of reminds me of like a Freddie Freeman, aging Freddie Freeman at that point, versus a, exciting 40-40 and 30 stolen bases kinds of first baseman that he has been for a while at this point. But we'll have to see what he can do this season as he starts to get older and older. And then, of course, Ohtani had a really rough season last year, really just had so many injury problems that he just is now officially wrecked. He still has a lot of that pop, but the pitching is pretty much gone. I think he's barely a number 5 starting pitcher, and he's still worth $46 million on his contract. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with his numbers as he gets to the end of his career now that he's 36. He's got 490 home runs. He is, I think, I'm going to say he's the active leader in home runs in the major leagues, unless it might be Juan Soto. I shouldn't be checking this right now, but I want to check it anyways. For career home runs, it is actually Aaron Judge, 588 at the age of 38. He is injured right now. He should be returning to the Yankees, and he should probably still hit about 40 home runs this regular season. So Aaron Judge still very, very good. Mike Trout has unfortunately kind of fallen out. He actually plays for the Yankees right now, and he unfortunately is probably going to end a little bit shy of 600 for his career now that he is 39 years of age. Ohtani could probably still hit 600 if he has really good seasons here. Otherwise, you got to be looking at people like maybe a Juan Soto who's only 32 years of age, has 400 home runs already. He might be able to do something about the home run record. Vlad Guerrero Jr., I don't see Vlad Guerrero Jr. being able to do that. I just don't think he has enough time left on his clock here in the major leagues. And then I think our best representative is probably going to be Charlie Condon at 27 years of age. He already has 180 home runs. I mean, I know that's the same as Jackson Merrill, but Condon started later. But if he continues to do 60 homers a season, it's amazing. He had 41 homers his first season, 31 homers his second season due to injuries, and then 51 and now 61 home runs for Charlie Condon. I wonder if he can hit 71 in this upcoming season. It has to be something one. I don't know why, but it just seems like it has to be that. Regardless, in 4 seasons, he's managed to hit 184 home runs. I'm hoping that he can continue to do 60 homers a season. If he does that, he will be on a very good chance and a very good streak to be able to break some records, at least for the franchise. But if not, then probably for MLB as a whole at this point. So, all that to say, the team is really good. MLB quality is going up. It's getting harder and harder to find those really good prospects. Now everybody is pretty good. At least they're very decent in the minors. You have to work a little bit harder. You have to look. You have to be a bit smarter, and it's gonna be just that much harder to be able to find people that we actually can utilize in our organization. So we'll see how it goes. We'll let you all know what we can figure out and do with our team, and we'll see you all up at the first year player draft for 2031. I'll talk to you all very, very soon.